But the way we record your attendance is through your email or your staff number. So if you could please add your email address or staff number into the chat, or to either Catherine, Georgia, or to me privately if you prefer to do it that way. That way we know that you're here, and this is the only way we can record your attendance in Zoom, so it's really important that you do so. We'll remind you a couple of times during the session. We find emails easier for most people, so please share that with us. The other thing is it can take a little while for your PD to appear in RAD. It appears under research training. So please be patient. If you need evidence of this, we're very happy to provide you with an email. So just email gred@qut.edu.au. Sometimes supervisors need it for promotion and things like that. So just get in touch if you need some proof that you were here. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to, I'm not sure if Catherine or Georgia are going to kick off, but one of them will take over imminently. Thanks very much for joining us. It's a huge session that we've got planned today. I'm really excited to see it myself, and I hope you enjoy.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm starting this morning. So I'm Catherine, the HDR Partnership Officer. Welcome today. It's just a couple of Zoom housekeeping to get started. Right, here we go. Get started. So if you just keep your sound muted and your video stopped for most of the session, it just helps with the bandwidth we find when we've got lots of people online. Feel free throughout the session to ask questions via the chat tool, or if you have any kind of specific questions, we will have question time at the end. We've got about 5–10 minutes at the end for questions generally, but please, George and I are online today, so please ask them in the chat as you go along. And to get started, I and the team online today would really like to acknowledge the traditional owners. So QUT and ourselves would acknowledge the Turrbal and the Yagara as the First Nations owners of the lands where QUT now stands. We pay respect to their elders, laws, customs and creation spirits, and recognise that these lands have always been places of teaching, research and learning. So QUT and ourselves would like to acknowledge the important role Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within the QUT community. So we're remote controlling screens, so it's just taking a little while. We had a lovely video we're going to show you on that, but something happened to that just before. Georgia, can you please click through to the next screen? It's not, remote access isn't working. Excellent, thank you. So the learning objectives today are quite straightforward. So we hope at the end of the session that you have a better understanding of GRED's career education and career development program, better understanding of our industry engagement program and the opportunities that are available to students, and overall just a better understanding of how to support the career development of HDR students. And as part of that, we've been talking about how Georgia and I help your students, but also can provide support to help you help your students as well, which is one of the main things. So in doing this today, we're going to be looking at why this topic is important, the conversations that we're already having with your students and that we'll be having with them throughout candidature. And then we want to have a look at the conversations that you're having with your students already. So we'll be doing that by going into breakout rooms. And also we have Dr. Rachel Murray from the Faculty of Health to share her experiences of the conversation she's having with her students. As part of that, like I said, there'll be a share your practice session for things you're already doing, and also looking at some of the tips that we have for you today. And then finally, we'll be looking at how GRED can help you and your students in career planning and industry engagement. So to kick things off, I'm going to introduce Georgia, who's going to be looking at why this topic is important.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. So why is this topic important? And we thought it would be really useful from a grad perspective to talk to you about why this topic's important in terms of the landscape. So if we understand what the landscape looks like for our students, then that can help us as educators from our perspective and yourselves as supervisors. And some of this won't be rocket science and you might already know it, but it's nice to just start with the same foundation and base. So why is this topic important from an academic employment perspective? And I'll talk about that first because obviously we're all aware that many of our PhD graduates are hoping or would like to step into an academic career. And we have the opportunities for them to explore an academic career or what we call an industry career. And that industry career is, I guess, a catch-all term for jobs in private sector and public sector, in not-for-profits, in startup ventures, even for those who are contemplating consultancy. So I wanted to look at both sides just to make sure we're all on the same page from that perspective. So in terms of academic employment, why this topic of career planning and industry engagement is important does come down to a really big review that was conducted in 2016 called the ACOLA review. And ACOLA standing for, of course I'm going to lose it in the moment, aren't I? The
Australian Council of Learned Academies.
The Australian Council of Learned Academies. I always wonder what that first one. So the Australian Council of Learned Academies, thank you, Katie, that conducted a major review across universities and industry to determine what were the key issues in terms of graduate research education and the opportunities for our students in terms of employment. And these are just some of the things that have been highlighted throughout this research and a number of different pieces of research. So we know that less than 25% of graduate researchers are securing tenured academic positions. We also now know that casual and contract positions are on the rise, and that's not just because of what's come out of the ACOLA review, but obviously just the impact of COVID-19 on the university sector has had a significant impact. We also know, based on particularly the ACOLA review, that academic roles are requiring a broader skill set. So more and more academics, through the job descriptions that are being posted and advertised, are being asked for experience in industry collaboration or grant writing or grant success. And these are some broader skill sets that our students require. So in summary, for academic employment, our students may need broader skills, capabilities and industry connections in order to be competitive if they're choosing an academic career path. Now, quite a few of our students still are choosing an academic career path, and I guess part of our role is having that conversation to say that in order to be competitive in that space, you need to broaden your skill sets and be able to, I guess, present a unique point of difference to any employer, but also academic employment. Now, I will ask Susan just to pop up a link to the ACOLA review so that if you are interested to jump in and have a read through. It is a fairly lengthy document, but there are some summary pages too. Now, why else is this topic important? Because a number of our students are going to explore industry careers and not just as a result of reducing academic positions, but just the fact that their discipline or area links quite well with industry. So with the decrease in academic positions, our students need to consider these roles in industry. And HDR skills, we know, are critical to industry innovation, to knowledge development and to economic growth. And these key things have come out of the ACOLA review and also Advancing Australia's Knowledge Economy that was led by the CSIRO, and Susan's popped that in the chat for you so you have that link. So we know that industry, particularly in terms of private sector and public sector, are facing global competitiveness, particularly now in a COVID-19 type of world where many things are online, many products, many services, and so they're really having to be innovative to a level and an extent that they weren't anticipating previously. And this is a space where our HDR students do have knowledge and skills and expertise to be able to contribute, even if they weren't aware that that might have been a career path for them. Thus, our students need to broaden their skill set, their experiences, and build understanding of industry in order to be employment ready for those spaces and opportunities. I've also popped at the bottom there a point about some research conducted on inside and outside the academy. It was a Canadian piece of research conducted in 2015 that really explored that space of being transitioning outside the academy for employment and maintaining employment within the academy. So that's an important read too. So because this topic is quite important based on the employment opportunities that our students are looking for, and I guess the imperative that the ACOLA review pushed forth to universities to really explore this space of how are we best preparing our graduate researchers for a career, not just outside industry, but also inside, not just inside industry, but also inside academia to be best positioned for employment. QUT responded with a team called GRED, and 2017, I believe, GRED was established. We're only a new little group of people who've been pulled together to create education that empowers our HDR students to advance their research, to lead their career, and to engage with industry. So at this point in time, I believe 2021, we have 195 online offerings for students and supervisors to engage in a range of different skills learning areas and industry engagement opportunities to further enhance their graduate employment skills. So what GRED did was GRED conducted some significant benchmarking review of universities and industry to look at what are the top 20 skills that HDR graduates need for either a career in industry or even a career in academia. And around the beautiful colourful wheel that you have there, we have identified those top 20 skills. So I guess the advantage of what we've created here at QUT, of which we're not aware of any other university that does this, is that we've created a wheel that identifies this framework of 20 skills. Attached to each of those skills, we have developed some education and/or industry engagement opportunities. So students can go through a skills assessment tool, which is now online, and that's the link at the bottom there that you'll see, qut.to/HDR skills. Students can go into that digital assessment and have a look at what they believe their experience is with each of these 20 skills. And from there, determine whether they need to advance those skills, and if they do, then they can be linked to the different offerings or different events that we offer. And that can range from a 1-hour webinar through to a 3-hour writing circle, through to a 5-week online moderated module. So we have a lot of opportunities for our students, in addition to all of the industry engagement opportunities that Katie will speak to later. So this is the wheel, this is the response that QUT has had, and it's our way of ensuring that our students do have the skills and capabilities that match, or I guess work hand in hand with the advanced research skills that they're developing with yourselves, so that they're best prepared for employment. So that provides a little bit of a background and a landscape for you, particularly those who haven't been involved with our offerings before. But I thought it'd be a nice opportunity to just pause for a moment and give you a chance to introduce yourself. And this is what we do with our students as well. So what we'll typically do is provide a little bit of information and then give them opportunities to network or connect via breakout groups. So I'm going to invite you to join the breakout group. Introduce yourself, and I'm just putting these here because this is what we do with our students, and you can see what it is that we're doing in this space. Your faculty, school, institute, your role, how long have you been supervising HDR students? Your peers might be interested in that. And what are your thoughts about why this topic is important? I'm going to ask Susan to break you out into those groups, and we're going to have 10 minutes in that space. You'll most likely have 3 of you in your group, which gives you around that 3 minutes each to introduce yourself. So we will see you on the other side. Thank you, Susan.
Hi, Susan. Feel free to put Rachel in a breakout group as well. I think she wanted to join the discussion.
Okay.
In there. Thank you. Sorry, I should have been clear. I should have said that before.
Now, Cynthia, I can see that you haven't joined a breakout group yet. If there's any problems or anything, please do just jump on and let us know.
So I have to activate joining the group, or it happens?
You should have received a join button.
Ah, no.
Susan, do you mind just double checking for Cynthia which group that she's been assigned to, and maybe just reassign that, please?
Oh, hang on. I think I've...
You're right.
If I press the breakout rooms one, will something come up?
Yes.
Okay.
Looks like everyone's making their way back. I think we have one more group perhaps still to join us. Susan, can you clarify that for me? Is there still another group coming through from the breakout room?
Yes, 2 more groups,
2 more, okay.
But the rooms will close in 5 seconds.
Okay, no problems, thank you. Okay. I think we have everyone back. Welcome back, everyone. Now, we do have a few more people join us just in the last 5 minutes. So I have just put in the chat, just please don't forget to add your staff email to the chat function, just so that we have a record of your attendance, particularly because this counts towards your supervisor accreditation. So, welcome back. Curious to hear if there are some feedback from people. What have been your thoughts about this topic? What were some of the key themes that came out of your discussions? Do we have anyone brave enough from each group, perhaps, to share their insights?
I can have a go. All right.
Great. Thanks, John.
Well, I think we only really got through a very quick discussion each, or a few points each, on what our thoughts about the topic were after we'd, because you gave academics the opportunity to talk about ourselves, we did that mostly.
Right.
In terms of the thoughts about the topic, I think that the basic theme was that everybody was concerned about how few ongoing academic positions there are these days.
Yes.
We might have got well, I might have got slightly sidetracked on wondering why that should be. We should have more positions rather than less these days. But anyway, I think people's general concern over that was one of the reasons why people thought this topic was important, and finding
Good.
ways to improve our students' opportunities is more important now than probably it ever has been.
Yeah, fair point. That's great. Thanks, John. And I really appreciate your honesty, suggesting that academics maybe spend a bit longer on the first 4 questions than the last question. But interestingly, this is not just academics. We see that with the research students who join our forums as well, and really try to encourage them to make some things succinct so that you can get to the point that is the conversation. So really good. Thank you for sharing. Does anyone have anything else to value add to that from their discussions? Just for all of our learning.
We talked in part about how it's harder now for students than it was when we went through.
Right.
The landscape's quite different in terms of funding, academia, and everything else. We also talked about the value of your skills tool.
Yes.
You know, and how it might be good for, we weren't entirely sure whether we were able to see it as well. And we had a bit of a discussion about whether that's the same one that the students use when they first sign up to do a PhD.
Great question. Yes, it is. It's the one that they do through, well, they're required to do through AIRS.
Yeah.
So yes, perfect. Can academics see it? Not all of the detail, no, but students are able to print out, like even myself, I don't have a student persona to be able to go in and use it, but the students are able to print out their report so that it can be a conversation starter. And I guess that's one piece of recommendation that we would have for you, that to not only just leave it as a conversation starter at the start of candidature, but maybe even utilise it throughout each of the key milestones, just as a reminder, and for you to be able to track and engage conversation around career planning. Good point, thank you. All right, look, oh yes.
Georgia, just following on from that, I think it would be
Yes.
really useful as an academic to be able to actually see where your own skills are at and knowledge compared with what's expected, and to be able to actually work with the tool.
Okay, lovely, thank you. I'm going to make a note of that, and we'll have those conversations. And look, this is why these sessions are so valuable, because it's not just about us sharing what we're doing, but hearing from your perspective where the gaps are as well, so that we can help facilitate education or opportunities in that space. So thanks, Cynthia, that's wonderful. We'll put that forward. Okay, lovely. Well, thank you for your insights. I guess in terms of this space, it's interesting and important for you to know how Katie and I work in this space. So as you know, Catherine works in the industry engagement space and I work in career education. And in industry engagement, Catherine will be going on maternity leave soon. So Susan Schlenker, who's on the line with us today, will be stepping in and supporting that position while Katie's on maternity leave. So hence there's a few of us. So just to provide a bit of an overview, this is my space. My role is around knowledge of career education. And my goal is to provide innovative career education that enhances career planning, professional identity and graduate employability. Okay, but I work hand in hand in partnership with Katie and Susan to make sure that that knowledge links in with the experiences that we want to provide our students. And they provide pedagogically sound learning experiences via a range of industry engagement opportunities that enhance employment readiness. So I'm hoping you can see that connection between the two spaces, that we're not just throwing information and teaching them how to write a resume, and we're not just saying, I'll jump into an internship, but we're looking at if students need some industry engagement experiences that enhance their employment readiness, whether it's academia or industry, it doesn't matter, then also what knowledge and skills do they need that works hand in hand with that. And so this is the space that we work together in order to support the students and in order to support you to support the students. So in terms of conversations, I thought it'd be really useful for you in your role to know what are the conversations we are having, and then let's hear from you about what conversations you are having. So just in general, across both career education and industry engagement, these are the 5 key conversations that we are having with students throughout the webinars and the talks and the modules that we run. So the first area that we often talk about is know your strengths and know your interests. So it's really important for our students to not feel like they get to the end of 4 years and these are the examples that we do see, not always, but we definitely have these examples where students are towards the end of their candidature and they can't articulate what their strengths are other than, oh, I've done a PhD or I've done research in da, 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 and it's all in academic language and they're hoping to get a job in industry. So one of the big things that we talk about constantly is know your strengths, know your skills, know your capabilities, know what is required in industry in terms of those strengths and skills, and know what your interest areas look like. Because from there, you can then have a look and start to understand what is the broader job market? What does it look like? So if I want to be an academic, what does it look like now? Does it look the same as when my supervisor was applying for academic roles? I'd probably say no. Is it the same as the experience my supervisor has right now? It may not be. Some of the job advertisements are looking a little bit different now. So we're encouraging students to understand what does the broader job market look like. And if I don't think I will fit within academia or I'm not interested in a job in academia, then what does industry look like across public and private sector, not-for-profit and startup ventures? We're also having the conversation around exploring industry opportunities. Now, many of our students will say to us, oh, but I'm looking for an academic position, so I don't need to do anything in industry. I guess we challenge that because in the world of academia, as many of you will know, the opportunity or the push to have links or partnerships with industry is quite critical. The need to apply for grants and be successful with grants, all of those kinds of things are additional skills that students can build and demonstrate through other industry opportunities. And this is a big space that Katie and Susan work in. The 4th conversation we're having is about building and maintaining networks. And I think we probably say network 200 times a week. Many of the students start to get the concept that, you know, it's who they know and having conversations with the people they know. Some of our students are a little nervous to even have a conversation with their supervisor. And that's not because our supervisors, like yourselves, are big, scary ogres. But many of our students, particularly our international students, believe that they need to focus narrowly on their research and just focus on their research. And if they raise the idea of doing something outside of their research, that their supervisor may not support that or may not see them as a focused, dedicated HDR student. So that can be some of the conversation you may like to look into. And the 5th part is then searching and applying for jobs. So I guess that just highlights that our purpose is not to just show students here are jobs and here's how to apply for them, but through stepping through the other stages, they'll get to the point where they're more prepared to start searching and applying for jobs across academia and industry. So these are the conversations that we are having with students, and I'm going to pass over now to Katie, who's going to lead the conversations that you are having with students.
Yes, thanks, Georgia. So for this section, we've got, I'd like to introduce, we introduced before, Dr. Rachel Murray, who is from the School of Biomedical Sciences and the Faculty of Health, to share some of her experiences in the space and the kind of conversations she's been having with her students. So welcome, Rachel. Oh, you're just on mute.
Yep, thanks, Katie.
So the first question I want to sort of chat to you about is, what has been your approach to supporting the career development of HDR students?
I think a lot of it is about remembering to have conversations with them regarding what they want to do when they finish, and having it regularly, because they do change their minds over time, in part because they may not know what all the opportunities are out there. And so things do change. So for example, I've just had a student last week, she moved to Sweden. So she's gone to the Karolinska Institute over in Sweden. So if you don't know what that is, it's basically a world-renowned institute, and they are responsible for things like choosing the Nobel Prize for physiology and medicine and stuff like that. That's probably what they're most well known for, but also for their science as well. So she decided in her first year, she actually said she didn't want to stay in academia when we had this conversation. And I think in long term, she doesn't want to either. But we had this conversation so that when the IMNIS program popped up, I encouraged her to go off and join the IMNIS program. So for those of you that don't do it, it's don't know anything about it, it's an industry mentoring program. So they get connected with an industry mentor. So she, it goes for a year. They do a lot of networking events, so they get to meet lots of people. They're able to chat about industry careers with people that are out in various different industries, and just sort of get some ideas of things that they should be doing. So she joined that, and we had to talk about some of the different kinds of jobs she could do, like she also did contemplate going into government as well, in part because she realizes, like many of the students do, that a lot of students don't end up in academia at the end. She also felt she wanted to go overseas. So towards the end, she was applying for fellowships to go into industry or postdoc. She wasn't, I think she preferred to do an industry one overseas, but she essentially wanted to go overseas just to get some more experience somewhere outside Australia and then come back. So we've basically been having these conversations over a few years, and a lot of the things we've done to kind of support her have been things like making sure that she's doing a lot of the non-publication things, like looking through the GRED courses, and doing things like leadership courses, and all the other things that might actually support her in her CV. So things like, also if she was going to stay in academia as well, we've got a few of those in there, like encouraging her to apply for travel awards. This is particularly important because once they get one, they tend to get a few more, and it's a section on your CV that can sort of make you stand out a little bit more. If you've got the same number of papers when you finish your PhD, those other bits on there can really help. We also encouraged her to join a few committees, but we had a bit of a conversation about that. So she joined things like the IBI committee that organises the conference there, because that's a good thing to have on your CV, organising conferences. But then we had a talk about, that's a yearly position, whether or not she should go for it a second time round. It doesn't add any more value to her CV. Is it something she wants to do to gain new skills? And if she doesn't, then going to look for something different and joining other committees to get some kind of extra skills for a CV. We also talked about the value of those. So often students don't understand the value of having those things on their CVs and why it might actually help them. So sometimes they often see it as taking themselves away from their research, and they don't understand that part of your PhD is getting this whole round set of skills so that you're employable at the end. The other one I did with her was to talk about applying for jobs well before she finished. Particularly, she wanted to go overseas. So she was applying for jobs in the last 6 months of her PhD, in part just to get a bit of a feel for putting in applications. And over time, she got much better at this and writing her letters to go with it. I know she talked to GRED about writing CVs and putting all of that in. So just making sure they get the right kind of help. And it all worked out quite well for her. She's gone overseas now, and hopefully over the next few years, she'll gain extra skills over there that she can bring back to Australia.
Excellent. It seems like you put a lot of effort into making sure it was quite like a well-rounded student coming out of the end of their degree.
Yeah.
And I just want to check, did you find that doing those things impacted her completion time?
She submitted a week past 3 years.
Wow, that's after examination?
So it went out to it's out at examination now. So submitting the thesis, she'd done her final seminar and everything else, and she submitted, as I said, it was a week and a half past her 3-year completion date. Excellent. So it didn't actually impact on that. She worked very hard at her lab work as well, but I also made sure it was focused enough that she could complete enough to do her PhD. And of course she did it during COVID as well, so a bit of it had to change last year, like many students. But I basically made sure that she was finishing on time, particularly if she didn't want to stay in academia as well. At that point she didn't. Just continuing gaining more papers was not going to help her in the long run.
Excellent. So in having these conversations, why do you think it's important for supervisors to have these conversations with their students?
So I guess there's a few aspects to this. One is from your own point, and that is that now for a lot of things that we apply for, actually putting down your student destinations and having them go quite well. She's actually not the first student I've had that's ended up at the Karolinska Institute at the end of their PhD. And it's a good thing to have on your CV that somebody that you have trained, whether they stay in academia or go into industry, showing that they've actually remained, they've used those skills and gone forward and are doing well from it. And so often fellowships will have a little section in on that, or if you're going in for promotion and things like that. So it's good for you. And also it's good for the students because I don't know about anybody else here. I was first in family to go to university to do a PhD and everything. I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing. And a lot of these students, if they don't come from a family where people have gone through those pathways, they actually don't really know what the final destinations could be or what they should be doing along the way to help their career. That's not just their actual research side of stuff. So having those conversations and getting the students to understand what the value is of doing extra stuff and why they shouldn't just be doing their own research. I guess the other thing is think about our students. They're not just a pair of hands that produce data. If they want a career, if they're happier and can see where they're going, they often do better. They have a purpose rather than feeling like they're going to get to the end and they still don't know what they want to do. This can drag things out a little bit. I find if they know what they want to do and they're sort of heading towards that, they're a lot more focused in finishing and writing up. They don't spend 6 months writing up, that kind of thing. We also, I guess, have a duty to our students to not just help them complete, but just get them to thrive afterwards so that they're a bit more rounded and they know what they know they're heading in a direction they're wanting to be heading in. Also letting them know that, you might start out wanting to do something, but that will change over time. As long as you're gaining skills along the way towards whatever you end up doing, you're going to do okay.
Look, it seems like you've done such a great job with your students. What practical tips do you have for other supervisors?
I guess the main one is just to keep talking to them. As I say, they do change over time. Students get a little bit jaded over the course of their PhD, when stuff doesn't go as well as they were planning, or, it's just got a bit too much. They might say, I don't want to stay in academia, and they change their minds a bit. But part of it is letting them know that there are different pathways. And if they have one in specific that they want to go for, getting them to seek that help towards that particular pathway. So that might be in terms of networking. So say they just wanted to stay in academia, maybe at conferences, I tell my students that they should go and have a conversation with people they don't know. There's not much point in them coming to talk to me at a conference unless they want to ask something or tell me about something. Other than that, they should be using that as a networking opportunity. So I tell them that they have to talk to a new person, you know, every break or at least once a day. Find someone that they've never known, that they don't know, whether it's someone who's given a talk or somebody they want to talk to, so they can just gain some of those connections. You may need to help them make connections as well. So you might need to go and introduce them to people. It could be somebody, you know, you might know somebody in a particular area that they're interested in, or you might have a friend of a friend who does, and just give them a bit of a helping hand that way. The other one is encouraging them to do stuff, to apply for stuff and do things. Sometimes they don't know the value of doing something. So, you know, telling a student to apply for a travel award, that's great for you because you get funding towards a conference, but it's also good for them in their CVs. And sometimes they just don't really know this. They might just be looking at it as, well, they don't want to have to pay for me to go to a conference or stuff like that. But if you let them know why it's good for them to do it as well, I think that really does help them when they're applying or putting in for, they're doing a talk or something. Talk about the awards and how if they gain an oral award or a poster award. Zoe got quite a few over time. That those things will contribute to their CV and their future careers, depending on what they want to do out there. And I guess most of it is about the networking and value of themselves.
Yeah, excellent. I think there's some great tips you've got in there for supervisors, and thank you for your time sharing those today, Rachel. So now what we're going to do is it's a chance for everyone else to share their experiences. And so we're going to go back into breakout rooms, the rooms we were in before. And so, you know, hopefully with the prompts that George just talked about and that Rachel's sharing her experiences, we thought it was a good time to go back in and just share with the same group as before about the conversations that you're having with your students. And also maybe what you've learned so far in the session that will help enhance these conversations going forward. So Susan, if you wouldn't mind reopening the breakout rooms. And if you could also please reassign Kirsten, who's just joined us, to the breakout rooms, that would be great.
Sorry, I had a teeny lab emergency, so it's so late.
It's all going okay now.
Okay, thank you.
So the breakout rooms have been open now. If anyone else is still online.
Oh my god! Yeah, I'm like trying. I'm on my phone because my PC doesn't have microphone, and it was painful typing last time. But I'm trying to find where the breakout room option is on the phone interface.
John, which room were you in previously? Sorry.
I was in number 2.
Okay, perfect. I'll assign you now.
Awesome, thank you.
And then Trudy, I think, are you having any problems getting in? Okay, so welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you found those discussions quite useful and were able to share your practices. We have a few minutes now, just if there were about 3 people who maybe wanted to share what they discussed in each of the groups or any kind of key points that stood out from your conversations.
I'll contribute some. Catherine, our group really focused in on the importance of networking, that it was really kind of the fundamental skill for just about anything going forward, including understanding that the networking with their own peers is actually their future professional network. And I don't know whether they really kind of totally understand that, but yeah, we did a lot of talking about networking and different means and ways of assisting with networking.
That is absolutely so great to hear. It's something that Georgia and I spend most of our time talking about is networking, including the value of networking with their peers for exactly what you've just said, that they are their future colleagues, and you know, and that students don't necessarily understand that. You know, we had a couple of sessions this week where like, we talk about networking a lot, but it's so important because of this reason. So it's fantastic that you were able to focus on that point. That's really great.
Can I just jump in there? Because we sort of focused on networking as well, but focused on the difficulty of networking in that there are so few face-to-face conferences now. So you know, where the students, I think Lila was saying, you stand next to your poster and talk to loads of people, and Rachel was saying before how important it has always been for students to go to conferences and present their stuff and have people come by and talk to them. And that's not happening anymore. And I think a lot of the students are struggling as to what to do to replace that, and relying potentially, I think, more and more on the supervisors and the supervisors' contacts within their field, because they don't, those opportunities are so limited now. And, you know, it's great that your student Rachel went to Sweden, because I'm hearing a bit from students that suddenly the world has shrunk and they don't want to. They feel like I'm not leaving Australia if there's a chance I'm not going to be able to come back when I want to. And the world is riddled with COVID and I don't particularly want to go. So the world has shrunk. Their networking abilities through conferencing has shrunk. So we didn't have any silver bullet solution for this, but I guess I was wondering if anyone else did.
So
the alternative?
Her IMNIS mentor. So when she joined the IMNIS program, she kept seeing her IMNIS mentor, and he helped her for looking for the industry jobs and looking at what she wanted to do. She had wanted to go overseas, and you know, as you say, the world has shrunk. She wanted to go somewhere that she felt she'd be a bit safer in, but
don't know if I would have picked Sweden for that.
yeah, well, you know, she's of an age where she's probably not going to get it too badly, and she felt, yeah. I don't think her mum was very pleased, but she used her IMNIS mentor and a few other people. She had a few friends that were working in, she literally spent a bit of effort looking through and finding people at companies and things like that and writing to them. So we went through how you might write, you know, just cold letters to people and stuff like that. And she did a lot of those things. She was reasonably well driven, I guess. But
yeah, and that's it, Rachel. Yeah, I think the cold emails are potentially what they're going to have to do, because that's sort of the written equivalent of walking up to somebody at a conference.
I think it's actually opened up with Zoom conferences, because you can sit there sort of anonymously and pick your targets as they're talking. And then you can connect with them on LinkedIn with an obvious connection. So it's not a cold call, and start a mutual exchange that sort of shortcuts Like I used to think if I went to a conference and I came away with one person a day, that was a good prospect to follow up and a strong connection, that was good. But you talk to an awful lot of other people to get there. With Zoom, you can go straight in and kind of target and have it all happening.
Yeah, I think this is a really great discussion to have. And it's actually one that George and I have been having with the students for like the past 12 months since COVID hit, really. And there's a couple of things to it. You know, I'll be talking about mentoring programs a bit later on. We're talking about the experiences that we do have for students to meet people in a more sort of structured way. We also shifted our networking training to sort of networking in the digital world. So Georgia offers workshops specifically on that. And, you know, Cynthia put some great advice there that we actually tell students, which is that, you know, when you meet them online, follow up with LinkedIn, start a conversation that way. I know that physically the world may seem like it's shrunk because, you know, in Australia there's less travel, but the point about the world has actually opened up in a lot of ways is so true. So students can now, you know, for no cost for a lot of conferences, or very little cost if it is an online conference, do a lot more building their international networks, because a lot of these things have moved online. So rather than having to fly to another country to participate, they're able to still participate online and take advantage of those opportunities when they might not have otherwise been able to do so. And then George's training can support them to really make the most of those connections. So they've got the experience of doing that conference, and then Greg provides the support for them to make the most of those connections so they can do those follow-up on LinkedIn and start conversations via email as well. But it's a tricky space, and students are approaching it very much the same way that they're asking these questions of, we can't have those in-person conversations, what do we do? So, you know, we are quite reactive in the Greg team and trying to pivot as much as possible to what the student needs are at the time. Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you for that.
That's great. So I think in the interest of time, we're going to move on now. So it actually leads us a great segue into what we're going to look at next, which is how GRED can help your HDR students and what they're doing. So that's the knowledge, the career education side of it, as well as the experiences. So to start with, I'm going to introduce Georgia again, who's going to talk you through the career education side of things.
Thanks, Katie. Thank you, and great conversation around networking. So I think what's important to note is that anything that we deliver, doesn't matter what the topic is in terms of the webinars, we are threading networking through, because we know it lives and breathes everywhere and is critical for their connections and employability. So to keep things really simple, I have created a careers matrix. So this is the suite of offerings that we offer to students throughout candidature. Now I know it's a little bit hard to read, but I have created this as a PDF. I'll ask Susan when she's ready to pop it in the chat for you so that you have a copy. And we'll put it on the Blackboard page as well for you to reference. But what we've done is we've taken all of the typical questions, and there's more than I have screenshot on this page. But we've taken the typical questions that students have asked us over the last 2 years, or said to us, you know, I'm in my first year, what do I do? Or I'm in final year and I need help with job applications, or I'm not confident of the value that I offer to employers, particularly in industry, you know, what do I do? So you'll see there that there's the statements down the bottom. Across the top of the webinars, the Q&A sessions, the 5-week moderated modules or self-paced modules, and then one-to-one services. Now, obviously, I am 1 to 3,200 HDR students. So we do focus our HDR one-to-one career consultations, particularly on our final years. But if there are key students that you feel really need some assistance, then please just do connect in with me. But what we will do is we'll say to them, are you in your first year? Have you attended Plan Your Career from first year webinar? Or you're looking at getting a job outside of academia? So have you attended the Careers Beyond Academia webinar? So I'm hopeful that on the PDF that you have, each of those webinars or events that we host is a live link to the booking form that just makes it easy for you to be able to reference. And we have Blackboard pages that sit behind each of those topics with resources and articles and research that backs and supports the content that we're talking about. So I hope that's quite useful for you in terms of how we can help you with your students' career planning and career understanding and knowledge. And from there, I'll hand over to Katie, who will talk you through the industry engagement program.
Thanks, Georgia. So QT, we have quite a comprehensive industry engagement program for HDR students that encompasses a range of different types of experiences and different commitment levels, integrations, and the way their work around candidature is a little bit different for each thing. But what we've tried to do is provide experiences for students to practice and enhance their skills around the key skills they need to develop during candidature, so the stuff on networking, everything. So the main thing we encourage students to do to start off with is to register for the program via HiQ. I'm actually going to share my screen to show you what it looks like when you're getting started with, just find the right share screen. Okay, here we go. So hopefully you're all aware that there is a research student community widget and dashboard on their digital workplace or HiQ. So how students get to there is they just go to My Communities and then Research Students. And what we've done is we've put all the industry engagement opportunities and offerings in one place for our HDRs. So there's just this tile here, Engage with Industry. And in this section, there's an intro page on why industry engagement is important, and then it talks through all the different opportunities that are available. And for some of our big offerings like internships, it expands down into quite a few other sections. But for students to register for the program, there's just a link there for the registration form, and that's on most pages. What registering for the program does is it lets me know who is interested in opportunities. They're also on the mailing list for special opportunities as they arise, including our internship program. So our internships are no longer emailed to the entire cohort. They're included somewhat in the HDR e-updates, but they're mostly just sent out to students who are on this form. So if students are interested in anything in this space, they should really register for the program. So and if students also have questions about anything, they can find it all on this HiQ site. So while I'm here and I've got my screen shared, I'll also show you what we've done on the flip side for our internal information for students and also for staff on HiQ and the digital workplace is we've built this new external facing website, Engage with our graduate researchers. So this is for our external partners and clients and industry to have a look at, they can search Google QUT researchers and this will come up. So on this page, it's sort of the flip side of what we've got on HiQ where it lists out the engagement opportunities available to students. And in particular, one that I'll show you now because I'm about to be talking about it is our student showcase. So we hold an annual showcase for our 3NT and Visualize Your Thesis competition, which is a public facing event. And I'm going to talk about the 3-minute thesis and Visualize Your Thesis in a second, but I wanted to show you this page because one of the key skills of this, one of the key benefits of this program is the research exposure that it brings. So you can see that our finalists from last year are featured on this site with an overview of their research, publicly available, like linking to their LinkedIn profile. And it's a really great way to build their researcher profile, but also to showcase the research that's happening in their thesis and then their broader lab and QUT more generally. We also have something on our Visualize Your Thesis winners here. And Kelly Wilson-Stewart was actually our she won the International Visualize Your Thesis competition last year. So I'm going to stop sharing there. Georgia, are you able to please reshare the slides? Oh, I can try.
There you go, is that up?
Yes, excellent. Okay. I'm just going to question my control. Sorry, there's a problem with switching screens. Okay. So that's how Engage with Industry HiQ. So our 3-minute thesis and visualization thesis competitions are probably like one of the entry-level ways to engage with industry through the program, and they're all about that research showcase of our talent. So you can see that external exposure that students gain from these competitions through QUT's website, but there's also media releases that go out about the competition, and as well as social media posts from QUT's main channels. But even if students don't make it to the finalist level of the competitions, it's a really great chance for students to learn how to communicate their research to a different audience than what they're generally doing in their HDR. So these competitions are all about communicating your research and its impact to a general audience. So it's really training them to be able to communicate to anyone. But we also make sure that we invite lots of industry partners to these events and make it like a really good networking opportunity for all students. And we're encouraging even the faculty competitions to be doing the same thing. A sort of bonus benefit of the 3MT and visualization thesis competitions that's come out in the last few years is we've actually had quite a lot of feedback from past finalists that when they come to write up their thesis, that having participated in the 3MT has actually helped them focus their ideas. So they find the writing process of the thesis a lot quicker, which is always a plus benefit beyond the industry engagement side of things. Something else we promote through the website is networking events. So what George and I do is we actually collate events from across the university and externally, having dual focuses on networking sort of with industry and with other academics, but also that idea of connecting with their peers. And we have a custom feed on that site of upcoming networking opportunities. Now the list isn't by any means exhaustive, but it is kind of a starting point where if students are wondering where to get started with networking, they can jump on that page there. We also have mentoring opportunities available. So we've heard Rachel talk about INNESS a lot, so that's one of the opportunities that we provide. Applications for that program have just closed for the year, but they open each year in around March, and it's really for second-year PhD students is who that program's targeted for. So they've got time to sort of complete the program, but they've got a better idea of where they want to go. Now, to be accepted into a mentoring program, it is a competitive process. The students need to put their best foot forward when submitting their applications and show sort of their broader participation in development activities and their skill articulation. What we do have open at the moment, though, is the QT Career Mentoring Program, which is an opportunity for students to be matched with mentors. This one is run out of the Student Success Group, and there isn't a HDR specific stream, but it is a chance for students to learn about sort of general industry settings and what that's like and what they're looking for in there. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to move through these quite quickly. We also have our HDR design sprints. Now these run in November each year, which is where students are working in transdisciplinary teams with industry on a sort of a short-term intensive project using a design sprint model. So that runs for a week full-time with some pre and post activities. Last year, students were working with the Office of the Queensland Chief Scientist, looking at sort of the big picture wicked problem of how do you improve the scientific literacy in a population. We've also introduced immersion placements. So while we always talk about the wide range of career paths available to graduate researchers, there's always the question of, you know, what do those careers look like on a day-to-day basis? What do those roles look like? What are they looking for? So we introduced the immersion placements for students to go and be immersed within a different setting. And this can be either in another academic setting or an industry to really gain more information on where they want to go for their future career and sort of, you know, what skills they might be missing to do that. At the end of the placement, they conduct an informational interview with the placement host. These are a really great way to expand on their networking. So if they meet someone, they might want to do like a mentoring program with them, or, you know, take it further, they might want to go spend it like 1 to 2 days with them on site. Now, these placements do have to be accommodated around candidature, so supervisor approval is required before they can start their placement. And the last thing that we have, which is probably the most intensive experience, is our internship program. This is where students go out and work with industry on about around a 2 to 6 month tightly focused industry funded research project. So when they do these, we actually pause their candidature and their existing scholarship for the internship duration, and then they take it up, and then they get the scholarship at the end. So their consumed load is paused and it doesn't affect on their candidature overall. Now, there are two pathways for internships. They can either apply for an advertised internship or self-source their own. For sourcing internships, I work really closely with the Office of Industry Engagement to sometimes embed internship projects within larger scale engagements happening within QUT or as standalone projects. The other thing that we're increasingly doing is working with the research centres on their key industry partners and sort of existing projects for how we can embed internships into those programs. So if you're from a centre and you'd like to have those conversations, please reach out to me and we can definitely see what we can do within kind of your existing centres' engagement frameworks. There's also lots of information for these on these for students and staff on the website to have a look at. I just run whole information sessions for students on these. So if students are wanting to get started with any of this, I encourage them to read through the Engage with Industry HiQ section. They can then register online to stay up to date with the latest internship opportunities as they come about. And then, as we've discussed earlier, it's really great for them to complete the skills assessment tool and start planning around the development and training. The sooner they can start to plan for that, the better, so they can start getting the knowledge that Georgia offers and then the experiences to complement that. I've raced through those. We're now kind of at the end of the content for today's session and wondering if you have any questions about any of the experiences or anything that George has said. Any comments? So a question's come through the chat asking if we formally engage with the Tier 1 centres about how they can assist with industry engagement opportunities. Absolutely, we do. It depends on the centre though. So if I generally have conversations with like the centre managers or the centre directors or whoever they've nominated within that space about industry engagement opportunities for HDR students, we can absolutely have those conversations, but I no longer kind of reach out to people sort of cold. So if your centre is interested, tell them to get in touch with me and we can go from there. If you'd like me to get in, the person who asked this question, if you'd like me to reach out to your particular centre, just let me know in the chat and I can do that, saying we've had this conversation on Zoom. Cynthia, do you have a question?
Or maybe a suggestion, I'm not quite sure which. I'm on the board of a professional body and they struggle to engage students as well. But there's a mutually beneficial interchange that could take place there if they were encouraged to engage with the professional body. I'm on the Royal Australian Chemical Institute. So, you know, having that encouragement from this side as well as that side would be probably a mutually beneficial thing to do. Yeah, well, look, we can, with the things like the placements and everything, we are happy to, you know, part of my role is industry engagement. So like with industry partners directly. So I'm happy to have those conversations with those organisations to see how QUT can help them kind of create those mutually beneficial arrangements and what type of thing that they're looking for. So we're always happy to do that. Yeah, I think from just a networking perspective, like there's a whole network through the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Cynthia, and we do, so we thread that through, particularly our networking webinar, our self-sourcing webinar on self-sourcing even an internship. We're constantly talking to students about building your networks and who is in your network, and you'll be surprised at how many students will say at the start of the session, I don't know anyone in my network, even though they have a supervisor or 2 supervisors. So we're really, I guess we're really threading it along, encouraging them to think broader. Who is in my network? Who do I know? Are there any professional bodies? Are there any social networks? Are there any academic networks? And how do they add to my broader network? But it is an ongoing conversation, you're right. And with supervisor support, that would be fantastic as well, if you haven't already, to start having those conversations with your research students.
Okay, are there any, we've at 2 o'clock now. We're happy to answer any more questions. We're so sorry. We made a mental note in the breaks that we're going to extend this session the next time we offer it to 2 hours. So apologies for the rush nature today. Are there any other questions that we can answer now?
No, but I guess carrying on from what Cynthia's just said, in terms of networking and what Kirsten was saying about it's a lot harder, joining a society and getting involved with one also helps as well. Just to get to know other people. While I understand what Kirsten was saying about it's harder for people because you're no longer face to face, there are still lots of other ways that we could think about connecting, whether it's just giving a talk and getting yourself out there so people know who you are, given that lots of things are free, joining in a society, being that person that you see in their local newsletter or things like that. So that was another thing Zoe did. She joined one of the societies and put a hand up for lots of stuff so that she was relatively well known in there.
Yeah, it is definitely one of our top practical tips for students to join any professional associations that are connected to their area or interests. Yeah.
Patricia, I can see your camera is on. Did you have a question or comment to share?
No, I just wanted to thank you for a great session, and yeah.
You're welcome. Well, look, I hope to everybody, I hope that we have met those learning objectives for you. You have a greater understanding of what we're providing in that career planning space and the webinars, and a greater understanding of the industry engagement opportunities for your students, and have had just a little bit of a chance to connect with each other and learn and share from each other in the space of supporting HDR students with their career journey ahead. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at future events.
Yeah, so I think, Tracy, do you have a question we can answer? No, okay. Okay, I saw the camera and I thought I'd ask. Okay. Thank you so much for your time today, everyone.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.